everyone. I'm Alyssa Brazino, the producer of Cockpit Council. Welcome to Tim's Take, where Tim talks about current events and answers questions from you guys, the audience. Let's dive right in. Question from the audience. I have been in a position where they escalate everything, even if it's not legal/compliance. How do you deal with that?
First of all, I'm thankful. I'd rather have people over-communicate with me than under-communicate. There have been relatively few times in my life where I've been like, wow, things really went south because someone over-communicated with me.
Good point.
Right? If people are habitually coming to you with the same question that's like not in your world, then just figure out the answer and figure out a way to communicate it effectively. Like if people keep asking you the same thing, then whether it's a company wiki or whether it's just you have the same response over email, even if it's not like a legal issue, but you know the answer, just answer it. Right.
Yeah.
If not, what I would do is really try to understand like where the question's coming from. Like, is it a question that can be solved through some other sort of process, like a resolution process? And if so, like, can you help build and implement that process where it's like, oh, questions that fit these criteria go in this direction or that direction. But all in all, like I actually see that as a really good thing because it's someone who obviously doesn't know where to go to answer that question. And so they come to you. Right. Because you've done a good job as a legal leader showing that like you know a lot about a lot of different parts of the business. So I actually think it's a really, really good thing, and maybe it's annoying, but I'd rather be temporarily annoyed than in the dark, I guess.
Right. It's a compliment.
I think so.
Maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Thanks for listening to Tim's Take. And if you have any questions, feel free to send them on over to cockpitcouncil@linksquares.com.